I think we will all agree that in the last 18 months or so, the world has completely changed. We are doing things now via platforms, by using digital technology that we didn't dream we would ever do for another decade, right? So I think we're all well aware of that. But the future of work is it now increasingly global. I think for the first time, we broke the link between geographical proximity to talent and accessing skills. So no longer do people have to be based near the office in London or in Manchester or in Silicon Valley or wherever. You can actually access skills and get work done from anywhere. And the reason for that is digital technology. To set the scene from a naming perspective, and Mark mentioned names, which is super important because this whole area of industry is, as Kerry said at the very beginning, referred to in so many different ways. But here's three sort of classifications and terms that we'll use a lot, I'm sure, as we have this conversation. So the gig economy is this catch-all term to describe, everything from Uber and Just Eat to, to Top Coder and Upwork and Freelancer.com and everything else in between. So it's this catch-all term to describe a labor market characterized by short-term contracts or freelance work. It has basically a pretty negative association for, high volume, low quality. And so as this area of industry, we sort of almost shy away from it. And we've started to embrace a term, open talent. So when we think of how we access talent in the enterprise, we don't often use the word gig economy because execs in enterprises don't like to think of themselves getting talent through the gig economy. It's just a branding challenge, if you like. But open talent seems to be a good way of describing this sort of mindset. So rather than saying we're only going to work with employees in the four walls of our organization, we're going to move now to an open mindset where we can access skills when we need them as opposed to just employing them. And as I'll talk about in a second, that open mindset can embrace agency workers, outsourcers, consultancies, robots, and human cloud models. So human cloud is the third one, which is this, the use of marketplaces, a digital model, a Google for resources, if you like, for professionals, or an Uber for professionals, however you want to think about it, but a way of searching, just like you do on Amazon for a product, but the way of searching through, and there are about 350 of these human cloud marketplaces and growing at 2 per week, specializing in different areas like Mark's in HR or like Gary's with people who are neurodiverse, or people with data science, or people in quantum computing, and there are very large generic ones like Fiverr and Upwork and Freelancer.com that are all publicly traded, growing incredibly quickly and have 50 million plus people signed up to them. So the human cloud is what we refer to as the digital marketplaces which link supply and demand. This is a diagram I put together, which I'll quickly go through, which basically says, well, why is this happening right now? Why in the center there is talent access being transformed? And to my mind, having been in the outsourcing, offshoring, digital transformation, RPA world for quite a while, I see four things happening. There's loads more as well, but four things really happening. We're digitizing all the front end processes of everything. We are accessing everything on our phones. As consumers, we want everything on demand. Convenience trumps loyalty. We want things now, and we expect everything to be digitized. And we expect exactly the same from the way we work in global enterprises, and that's sadly not the case. But we're getting there slowly. The second thing is we've got more millennials and Gen Zs particularly coming into the workforce. And if anyone wants things on demand, and as a father of four of them, I know exactly what they want, and one of them now works for me in our company, the 22-year-old. They were born digital. They're global and connected. They don't care whether talent's in the office or not. They just want access to something, and they want access to it now and digitally. The third thing is we're automating everything in our back offices. If you think about operations in the world of, the world that Leslie knows so well, the RPA and intelligent automation world, and the cloud and as a service world, we're expecting everything as a service and on demand. And we're doing that in the rest of our organizations. But sadly, we haven't done that with the way we access talent until now. And we expect that as a service model to move into the talent space. And then the fourth thing, the two buzzwords of the last whatever it's been now, 15 months or so, agility and resilience. We want variable over fixed for everything. And we want the same for that with talent. We don't want benches of people who are going to be sitting there fully employed that we can't deploy on client sites or on client projects. But if we were able to switch them on and switch them off and access them as and when we needed them in the same way that we can with our computing power, then that would be a very, very good thing for large enterprises. Or if we had capacity demands in one part of our business and constraints in another, we could share digitally across internal talent across our global organization. And again, that would be a good thing. So having a very digital way of accessing talent to enable agility and resilience. And that term at the bottom there, access trumping ownership, that I mentioned previously. Loads and loads of research on this. Lots and lots of execs believe that freelance and gig workers will substantially replace full-time employees. And when we talk about the different types of workers rather than employees, we're seeing an increase again, and this is from Staffing Industry Analyst, in freelancers sourced via platforms. There's going to be a huge increase in outsourcing, especially now with the digital talent gap and everybody wanting to digitally transform their businesses post-COVID. Then there will, I expect, be a post-COVID bounce. We'll see a significant increase in outsourcing. Great time to be an outsourcer or an outsourced advisor. There'll be more agency workers, there'll be more statement of work consultants, 1099s, whatever you want to call them. The only thing that will decrease, according to SIA and others, is regular permanent employees, partly because of the forces that I showed on that previous slide. And when I put this red box around those top 7, is that 7, 6? Because that's when we talk about open talent, we're talking about all of those. It's not just the human cloud, we're talking about blending all of those together. Lots of people, including me, say every company will need a gig economy strategy. This has now become a big deal. And I believe that the same type of models for transforming your business from an operational perspective that applied to outsourcing, GBS, RPA, digital transformation, apply to open talent. You need executive oversight, and we're seeing that. Stephen and I are doing some stuff together. We're seeing it made such a difference when the head of Cognizant came in and said, this is what we need to do, these are the risks, but the rewards so outweigh the risks. That executive oversight made such a difference. You've got to have a proper strategy. You need an operating model to do this properly. It's not, yes, of course, any business can go onto Upwork and hire a software developer or a tester if they want to, and that's fine, but you're not going to get significant benefit for your enterprise unless you have a proper strategy and a proper operating model. And I'm not saying you're not going to do those first 4, the outsourcing, GPS and RPA. They're of course all growing at the same time, and you need to orchestrate all of those alongside open talent, in my opinion. I've talked about what we mean from the gig economy, which is basically everything: human cloud, temporary workers, other temporary workers, independent contractors, etc. But just from a size perspective, the gig economy, which is everything B2C and B2B and Uber and Lyft and everything, is huge. It's probably closer to 5 trillion now. It's growing, massively, and going to continue to grow. The human cloud side of it, which is also Uber and Lyft and Upwork and Fiverr and Topcoder, and anything that you get from a digital marketplace via your phone or your laptop, is big, 179 billion. But the business to business space is still pretty small, right? It's only 10 billion. This is from last year from Staffing Industry Analysts, which do an annual report, but it is growing significantly. When we talk about the B2B marketplaces, it's the ones I've mentioned plus 347 others, and depending on how you categorize it, some people say there's 800. On our website we've got a list of about 200 of the main ones. Some are screen their workers and create really excellent communities and monitor quality. Others simply don't, and it's a real wild west. Of course it's not regulated. It's not accredited yet, although through the Open Assembly we're working on putting that in place. There's no sort of training or standards associated with working in this way yet, but there will be fairly soon. And so it's a really, really interesting but incredibly complex marketplace. And this is the sort of thing that I thought about 2 years ago, having been an independent sourcing advisor for so long. I thought, well, if organizations are going to start to use these marketplaces at scale, which I think they are, they're going to need advisors. They're going to need to know whether I should work with one over the other. They're going to need a SIAM type layer, what I call talent integration and management across the top of the multiple marketplaces. You're going to need a go compare type model, digital go compare type model across the top, because otherwise, how do they know whether to get something from, from Talmix or Talon or Riverflex or Xplace or X? I mean, it's just complicated. And so they need independent guidance, a sort of Sherpa to guide them up the mountain. That's one of the things that we do. When you think about the marketplace is very complex. And again, staffing industry analysts, SIA there, use this Venn diagram to describe the three different types of crowdsourcing or open talent that's accessed via digital marketplaces or the human cloud. First one on the bottom left is probably the easiest one to understand, and that's simply online staffing. I want 10 data scientists. I want one freelance software developer. I want a tester. I want a designer. I want someone to write blogs for me. I'm going to get, I'm looking for an independent person that I can speak to. I can get to know, we use lots of them in our business. We have a virtual assistant called Ants who works for us all the time. She's a great friend of ours now. Never met her. I hope I will meet her at some point. She only lives in London, but we access her through a marketplace and we buy services from her, but she's become a good friend. And that online staffing mix, I want to be put in touch with someone to do some software development for me, and I'll get to know them, is the largest sector. And this is where you'll see Upwork and Fiverr and freelancer.com and the like. The online work services, which is like the Uber model, if you like. With Uber, I want to go from Chelsea to Camden. I'll use Uber to do that on my phone, but Uber control who the driver is, right? I don't know the driver. I might say hello when I get into the car, but I'm not booking the individual driver as I am with online staffing. I'm just saying to Uber, I want to go from A to B. And there's more and more of those in the enterprise space, the likes of a distributed.com or a live ops or a Gigster or a BTG. There is Business Talent Group has just been acquired. You buy a service and they use freelancers to deliver the service. And then there's the crowdsourcing space, the space that James and Topcoder are in, where you typically, and there's lots of different ways of doing this, but you basically say, I'm looking for an app to be developed. I want some APIs to be developed. I want some wireframes. I want a logo. And then the platform uses a competition method, a challenge, to say, right, here's what the client wants. Who will bid for me or bid through the platform to provide services to deliver that client requirement. And it's a very simplistic way of looking at it, but the crowdsourcing model is often done through competitions. And then what organizations like Topcoder have very cleverly done, because they've got 1.6 million people on their platform, is to say, well, actually, we could start to do the online staffing bit to a certain extent, or even the online work services, because we can start to curate the members on our platform, and we can say, using Topcoder's talent as a service, I want a software developer for 6 months, and it gives you a fixed price, and you're guaranteed to get a very good people. Because when these platforms have a curated market of individuals, they're collecting data on everything that individual does. So let's say they've screened them, they know they're brilliant software developers and they're into Angular and JavaScript. You can see how much money they've earned. You can see the feedback which a freelancer lives and dies by, their 5-star reviews. You can see their portfolio of work. You've got all this data on everything to do with that freelancer. So you can of course start to use that asset in different ways. And this is what I believe we will start to see the big freelance platforms go from being, in the old days, predominantly probably B2C or B to startup, whatever that is, to become really enterprise ready. And we're starting to see that. They've got account managers, they've got business success managers, they've got recruiters, and they'll start to act more like service providers and start to compete with some of the outsourcing service providers, because they've got so many millions of people on their platform able to work. So they're the three categories, but it is changing. And I'll just say a couple more things and then I'll stop. But one of the things that we do a lot of at Resource, and this is a Gartner model, but is to help organizations to achieve agility, scalability, cost performance by balancing the different types of workers. And I've just created this sort of simple seesaw diagram, which is much easier to understand from my simple brain. But you basically, if you've got resilience, speed, quality, and cost that you need to control as a global enterprise, you've got a number of ways of delivering services from employees to contractors to agencies to outsourcers, consultants, and now the human cloud. Are you looking to augment or are you looking to replace? And we're working with organizations now who are saying, actually, I'm going to use less of IBM and I'm going to use more of Upwork. I'm going to change the model. I want to work with Cognizant, but I want to do it on an on-demand basis. Or I want a difference of, I want managed service, but the ability to be able to burst into a crowd of curated experts for my IBM cloud. And so we're seeing this sort of augmenting and supplementing as a result of human cloud, as long as speed, quality, cost can all be managed. And that talent balance is something there isn't a lot of independent advice in the market providing.